Dante wrote, "The path to paradise begins in hell." Join Deacon Don Prendergast and David Fortin as they discuss the tools men need to build the domestic church and the spiritual weapons to defend it. This is Through the Fire.
All right, Deacon, we are back. You just recently went on a beautiful retreat in Tennessee. You want to tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I just want to a shout out to my brothers and their wives, chaplains from the Punishers Law Enforcement Motorcycle Club. We went to a chaplains retreat at the Fairhaven Ministries Resort Center in Rowan Mountain, Tennessee. Had a great time. Beautiful, beautiful part of the country.
You got to next time you go there, you got to send pictures.
Yes, well, right now, unfortunately, there's a ton of pictures up on Facebook, but it's only for members to see. So yeah, I gotta get some other pictures. Maybe I can find some, put some up on my Facebook page.
Speaking of Facebook page, I don't know if our listeners know that you do a reflections online on Facebook Live. So maybe you just tell us a little bit about that.
So
how we can.
As a deacon, I do have the opportunity to preach on Sunday. Not every Sunday, because nobody wants to listen to me that much. They would rather also hear from their pastor. So I don't preach every Sunday, but occasionally I'll have the opportunity to preach at Sunday Mass. But what I do try to do every weekend is I do what's called a Through the Fire backyard reflection. So it's kind of a synopsis of the Sunday readings and a little challenge and a little mini homily. Usually runs around 5-6 minutes. So you can look me up on Facebook, Deacon Don Prendergast, or Through the Fire, and you can find it there and start scrolling through that. But so we were talking in the last break about being steadfast in faith,
being committed to the commitment.
I like that. Being committed to the commitment. Absolutely, because we can all experience. We've all experienced, and I'm sure we would admit if we're challenged, that sometimes we fold and we're not committed because it's hard. Sometimes we feel as though, I don't want to do this anymore. It's just easier to give in. It's easier to give in to anger. It's easier to give in to greed. It's easier to give in to lust, vanity, you name it. It's just easier to give in to laziness and sloth. Sometimes it's just easier and when you do that, when you do give in, you are giving in to the desires of the flesh. Mm-hmm. All of them, all of the 7 deadly sins, they are all desires of the flesh. It's this worldliness, the world around us, our I guess kind of the biological. Father Chad Ripperger, he speaks of this as, we need to master our lower faculties before we can find ourselves as spiritual people, before we can really start to excel in matters of the supernatural and really, really enter into that relationship with God. We need to master our lower faculties. And so that's a real challenge. And part of that is being able to master what's easy, right? It's easy to quit. It's easy to give in to lust and to, watch pornography or whatever. It's easy. You're satiating the body. It's easy to give in to anger and pride. It's easy. It's a lot easier to just be vengeful and angry than it is to be humble and say, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna lash out. Everybody has a bad day, or everybody has bad experiences once in a while. It's easy to give in to greed. Mine, mine, mine. I gotta get what's mine. I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna make sure I'm taken care of. It's easy to do that. I mean, that's an insecurity that many people have, as opposed to being charitable and being, giving and loving. So we need to control our lower faculties. And that's really what this life is calling us to live, really being committed to the commitment. It requires us to really control our lower faculties and to understand exactly who is it that's behind the temptation? Who is it that might be manipulating somebody else who's having difficulty controlling their lower faculties? Because it's too easy to say, oh, the devil made me do it. No, well, the devil asked you to do it and you said yes. The devil didn't make you do anything unless you're about to tell me that you're completely possessed by the devil. But that's not as common as people would love to use the excuse. Most likely, it's the devil may have asked you to do it and you willingly said yes. And speaking of the devil, we have to really understand exactly what it is that we're called to do. And so Jesus, he brought about salvation for all of humanity through the sufferings of the cross. He voluntarily accepted that fate. He said, nobody can lay down my life. He has to give it up. He willingly accepted his fate for our behalf so that we have a chance. But now we have to do our part. What began with Christ on the cross is brought to completion through us. This is a fundamental Catholic teaching. This is why faith without works is dead. We have to commit to the cause also. We have to commit to the commitment, right, Dave? As you said, we have to commit to the commitment.
Yep.
And so, we have to take a look at the fact that we are going to suffer. We are going to be tempted. It's going to be hard, man. It's going to be hard. And that's another thing to think about is, not only do we have to control lower faculties, we're still dealing with concupiscence. And we're dealing with, as men anyway, we're dealing with the sins of Adam. We're dealing with the sin of effeminacy, the curse of effeminacy, and the curse of irresponsibility. This desire to just blame somebody else and not do the hard work. And yeah, doing what's hard. I mean, listen, as an ordained member of the Catholic Church, I made a promise to my bishop when I was ordained. I made a promise to my bishop that I will pray the Liturgy of the Hours every day. Thankfully, I don't have to pray like all 5 hours. I only have to pray morning and evening. That's the minimum. But I made a promise that I would pray it every day. Have there been times when I didn't pray it? Yeah. You get really tired, you fall asleep, or you procrastinate. It's like, I'll pray it later, and then later never comes. But you make a promise, you got to stick with it. Dave, we were just talking. I was just telling you that I went on this retreat with my brother chaplains from the Punishers Law Enforcement Motorcycle Club. So I've done this retreat more than once. And on Saturday, everybody's got their motorcycle there, and there's a big ride, and everybody goes on a ride through the countryside and the hillside of Tennessee. It's gorgeous. Do I go? No. I have yet to go on one of those rides. Why? Because while they're out going on their ride, I am going to Mass. Because Sunday is a big travel day. It's like from where I'm at in Florida to where this is in Tennessee is like a 9-hour drive. And so Sunday is spent, I'm driving the whole day. So on Saturday, I'm looking for a vigil Mass. And this past weekend when I went on the retreat, I had to drive an hour away from the retreat house in order to get to Mass. So I'm gone for 3 hours. And now why do I do it? Because standing in front of Jesus, trying to explain to him why I didn't need to follow through on the commitment that I made is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. There is no way that I'm going to do that. And then, yes, I know there are many of those that, well, you just ask for forgiveness. Okay, so the idea of I know I'm going to sin and I'm going to do it anyway with the attitude of, I'll just ask for forgiveness. What kind of Catholic does that? What kind of member of the clergy?
That's the sin of presumption, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you go into the confessional. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Yeah, I hit my kids. And okay, well, can you do something different other than hitting? No, I'm going to hit them again. Well, you're not forgiven, pal. Exactly, Dave. I mean, it's presumption. It doesn't work that way. So we know as Catholics that skipping Mass, unless of course you're in the hospital and you're sick and you actually can't get to Mass. Otherwise, skipping Mass is a cardinal sin. It's a mortal sin. You can't do it. You can't say you're a baptized member of this family. You can't say you're a Catholic. You're living this life, and then you're going to pick and choose what aspects of this life you're going to follow. So the rest of the story is the same. The rest of this is the same. It's hard, but you got to do it anyway. Dave, I want to read from First James. I want to remind everybody of this. I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'm going to remind you of this. Consider it all joy, my brothers, when you encounter various trials, for you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. And let perseverance be perfect, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. But if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and he will be given it. But he should ask in faith, not doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea that is driven and tossed about by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord, since he is a man of two minds, unsustainable in all his ways. The idea here is it's inconceivable that Jesus is going to lift you up just to watch you fall. I mean, that would be really bad. It does not make sense. God will never set you up for failure. But what he will do is he will take away from us that euphoria that we've all experienced being close to God. Some of our Protestant brothers refer to it like an anointing feeling. It's this euphoria that, man, I'm on top of the world. John of the Cross talks about the dark night of the soul. The idea is Jesus will take away the euphoria of his relationship with you. Even Mother Teresa spoke about how she felt as though God was so far away from her, that she felt as though, she was abandoned. And she wrote that in her diary. So Jesus will take that euphoria away, because you're not supposed to fall in love with the euphoria. You're supposed to fall in love with him. It's kind of like being married to somebody for a very long time. Yes, you love the person, profoundly deep you love the person, but it's a little bit different than when you first met. It's different. You may not have that super euphoric excitement just simply being in that person's presence, but the relationship has gotten so much deeper that there's nothing that's going to separate you. Even if the two of you are at each other's throats because somebody said or did something, nobody's going anywhere. So that's actually the kind of relationship that God wants to have with us. That's the kind of relationship Jesus wants to have with us. Jesus wants us to know, and sometimes the only way that we're going to know this is if we experience it. He ain't going nowhere. And if we believe that, well, then we're not going anywhere either. And so there's no reason to quit. We may feel like it. We may want to quit, but there's no reason to quit, because in the end, we're never alone. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. We're running the race, as Paul talks about. We are running this race, and this is more like a marathon, and we're pacing ourselves. And like with cross-country races, you got your ups and your downs. You've got puddles that you're jumping through, but you keep running. It's so important. And so the other thing that I wanted to read is going to Galatians. And in Galatians chapter 6, I want you to hear this, because this is the next thing we need to touch on. Chapter 6, beginning with verse 2. Bear one another's burdens, and so you will fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he is deluding himself. Each one must examine his own work, and then he will have reason to boast with regard to himself alone, and not with regard to someone else. For each will bear his own load. Let us not grow tired of doing good, for in due time we shall reap our harvest, if we do not give up. So then, while we have the opportunity, let us do good to all, but especially to those who belong to the family of the faith. And so, Dave, this is where it becomes really important for us to talk about something that we've talked about a lot, and how men need to be in a relationship also with other men. Men need to be around other men, and like, for example, our good friend Trace, iron sharpens iron. This guy is so incredible. This guy, Trace, he's a oil field worker. It's like, holy cow. I mean, he's a tough guy. Oil field workers are kind of like the old-fashioned cowboys of today. These guys are tough as nails, and he's got a heart so soft. He's inspiring.
He
But we
is.
need to be around, we need to be around men that keep us on track and pick us up when we fall.
You know, I just want to give a shout out to Trace. He just he left the oil fields a little bit early because he wanted to be with his wife who was going through surgery. So we are praying for his wife,
Yes,
Dixie, our good friend Trace. He's a man's man every step of the way.
he is.
Yep.
He's a really good guy. But it's so important that we, lean on each other. It's so important that we use one another, when things get tough. It's way too easy for us to just simply make the decision that we're going to quit. We're going to give up. And I tell you, in so many instances, the reason why people start having that attitude is because they're isolated. They're trying to do this all by themselves. And there's so much of society that is so artificial, right? One of the shows that we just did, we did a show on artificial intelligence. But people act like that. People want to project instead of what they really are. They want to project a false image, hopefully to gain friends, hopefully to make themselves look better, seem better. But the problem with that is it's not you. It's an illusion. It's a lie. And what happens when it all blows back on you? What happens if it's kind of like you go on a date with somebody and the only information you have is what the person wrote about themselves. And then you get there and it's like, whoa, you look nothing like what you described. Is that really the kind of impression that we want to give anyone? So it's really important. It's important that we understand we have to remain truthful. I was listening to this guy, Jordan Peterson, who's a psychologist, and he was talking he actually did a biblical series. And one of the things that he was commenting on is truth, right? So, of course, as Catholics, we're thinking about the time that Jesus stood before Pilate, and Pilate basically says to Jesus, what is truth? It's a very profound statement that Pilate made. What is truth? Kind of reveals that whatever life Pilate was living, he didn't see it as being real. But Jesus is the truth. And if we accept that, then we also have to accept the understanding that if we live truthfully, then no matter what happens to us, good or bad, it's actually the best thing that could happen to us. And that's a concept that Jordan Peterson had mentioned in one of his talks. Let me say it again. If we live in truth, then no matter where that truth takes us, either good or bad, it is exactly the best thing that could happen for us. This whole myth about, what's in it for me and all this other stuff, if it means sacrificing truth, then it's not the direction that we should be going. But yet that's what the world would say to us. The world would say, oh, here's all kinds of excuses and exceptions. It's okay to lie if it's a white lie. It's okay to steal when someone else has more than you. And so, we have to be really careful because there's tons of pressure on us from the world around us. Tons of pressure. I also want to mention, in regards to being steadfast in faith, Saint Fabian, who was a pope and he was a martyr. He lived the year 236 to the year 250. So now let's just take in consideration 236 to 250. This is the time of the height of the Christian persecution, right? So Constantine, he's not really in the picture here. So Fabian, what he's responsible for is he was the one that took Rome and divided Rome into 7 districts. So he was the one that kind of created this concept of dioceses almost, but they were called districts. And so he separated Rome into 7 districts, and each district was oversaw by a deacon. So the deacon was in charge of the district. So there were 7 deacons, and this brought about a tremendous amount of peace within the city of Rome. But of course, that's not good for the emperor because the emperor wants control. And if the people feel empowered and feel at peace, the emperor is going to lose control. Tyrannical individuals, tyrannical leaders would much rather have chaos because it's easy to control people in chaos than it is to control people during peacetime. And so out of that emperor's desire came this huge persecution, and it ended up resulting with St. Fabian's arrest and eventual martyrdom while he was in prison. We have to stay true to the faith. We have to remain steadfast no matter what, even when it gets hard. Think about today, the underground Catholic Church in China. We have it easy here. How difficult, I mean, compared to, different times in history or even today, just the idea that if you're a practicing Catholic of the true and authentic Catholic Church in China, the one that's underground, it's just they every single day they have to worry about being outed and getting arrested and then never seen again. Here in the United States, I mean, this is a piece of cake. This is easy to be Catholic. It's easy to be a believer. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody's going to hurt your feelings? We can do this. We can definitely do this. So, Dave, let's talk a little bit about
some bad things
what?
have been happening. A few weeks ago, there was that school shooting at that Catholic school. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, how there are other places that have it worse than we do, but it's getting bad.
Okay, so here's the thing that we have to remember. What's worse, giving in to the pressures of society and abandoning our faith, or accepting that there may be a black swan event? I mean, in China, this is like a constant threat. Here, we have to worry about black swan events, which is a little bit different. But generally speaking, it's highly uncommon for there to be a real threat each and every Sunday when we go to church. But it's true, we do have to be aware of the possibility. I remember, a long time ago, there was a shooting in an Amish community. And that Amish community taught me a lot about forgiveness and mercy. They actually forgave the assailant. And at no time were they looking for revenge.
Yeah,
no time were they looking for revenge. They forgave the assailant. We can learn a lot from that. We can definitely learn a lot from that behavior. But Dave, let's touch on, with a little bit of time that we have left, let's touch on some of the things that we can do to build up our confidence, to build up our relationship so that we can be helped through the difficult times. All right? So, what do you think the first obvious one is?
Honestly, to me, I think you got to have a battle buddy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I'm fortunate. I have you. I have Deacon Dave Imhoff. I have Trace. I got Jay Goodman. I got my friend Brian Howell. I got a lot of great guys that I can lean on when something's bugging me. I got guys that I can go to that I know are going to help me pray through this thing.
So that's the first thing, is you need everybody needs a spiritual director. A spiritual director is different from a counselor. It's different from a psychotherapist. A spiritual director is, like you said, a battle buddy. Somebody like a navigator. That's another good way of looking at it. You're driving your car down the road. The spiritual director is the guy holding the map, sitting in the passenger seat. You're in control. You get to decide how fast, how slow, right turn, left turn. But everybody needs a spiritual director to say, here's what the map looks like up ahead. Which way do you want to go next? And somebody that can give you some common sense. Ultimately, there are two choices for battle buddies. Ultimately, two choices for spiritual directors. Ultimately, either your spiritual director is going to be the Holy Spirit, or it's going to be Satan. Ultimately, those are the two choices. And obviously, we want the Holy Spirit to be our ultimate guide and spiritual director. But you're absolutely right. We all need a battle buddy. We need somebody that we can talk to somebody that can give us an honest appraisal as to what they see. So
The
next thing,
the Irish have a great saying that a friend's eye is a good mirror.
well, there you go. Yeah, especially like Dave, you and I, we have a very tight relationship, and I'm confident that if I was saying or doing something that was just, where did that come from? You would tell me. And likewise, because a good friend wants to see the benefit of his buddy, and as opposed to allowing his buddy to, fall into a pit.
Right.
So the next one would be daily prayer. We've talked about this, I don't know how many times. Everybody has to have a rule of life. I get up at this time, I do this. This is my prayer routine for the day. I go to bed about this time, I do this. Everybody needs daily prayer, whether it's Liturgy of the Hours or it's the one of the other books that are out there, Daily Bread, or whatever it is, or the daily Mass liturgy, whatever it is. Everybody needs to have a daily prayer. And then, of course, we talked about this. We need multiple sources, multiple perspectives so that we can learn. We don't want to find ourselves in an echo chamber, because I may say maybe 5% of what you heard in this show today, maybe 5% made sense to you. And 95% was like, oh, that was nice, but I didn't get anything out of it. Okay, well, you got the 5%. So you take that 5%, you add it to something else, to something else, to something else, and now you're starting to get a custom fit on how you're going to go through your life and how you're going to make it. And then last thing, and this probably cannot be stressed enough, you got to pray the rosary. You got to pray the rosary. All of us should be able to relate to the idea that when things are tough, when you're feeling weak, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling lost, there is nothing else like running home to mama and letting her put her arms around you and holding you and getting you through the difficult points. One of the mysteries that I find myself praying a lot is the sorrowful mysteries, because it reminds me of, no matter how bad I think I've got it, yeah, put that in comparison to what Jesus went through. And it's like, okay, I can do this. If he can do that, I can do this. And so there you go, Dave. That's kind of our game plan for staying the course. So we have a new email address, and I just want to mention this. For those of you that are interested in sending us, your thoughts on the show or topics you'd like us to cover, prayer requests, what have you, if you want to just say hi, send us an email at throughthefire392@gmail.com. Through the Fire, all one word. Through the Fire 392, all together. throughthefire392@gmail.com. It's our new email address. Send us your show ideas, send us your prayers, send us your blessings upon us. Pray for us, because we definitely need that, and we'll keep praying for you. So it's throughthefire392@gmail.com.
Great topic this episode, Deacon, but we got to leave it there. So for Deacon Don Prendergast, I'm David Fortin. We will see you next week.
The preceding program was the Spirit of Truth Radio Arts original program for CastingThe.net.